Hey, what's up guys, it's Benbonk and welcome back to the 12th Slimekeep devlog. So in this devlog, I made a lot of small changes and fixes to procedural generation, and I also started drafting the game plan for Slimekeep and worked a bit on getting the foundation for boss fight set up. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The first thing I started working on was not just one thing, but many things, as I had to get a lot of small issues patched up. The first of these issues was the shop, which was a really easy fix just as I actually mixed up what the shopkeepers sell, so I got them back to normal and now the shopkeepers sell the correct things. And I still have a lot of thinking to do about how shops are going to work, but at least I have them there for now. Next up was a small glitch where the doors would not open after killing all the enemies in a room. After some debugging, I found out that the issue lies within my room manager script, and for some reason, my current room variable was acting a bit strange, so I made some changes there, and thankfully that fixed the issue. Another thing I needed to work on was the door animations. In the last video, I mentioned that I made this new door that fixed perspective issues, so I got to work animating this door. And one thing I like to do while animating is create multiple different variants of an animation so I can share them with my Discord server for feedback and see what version people like the most. So this is exactly what I did, and I ended up creating 3 separate door animations and shared them to my Discord server. People seem to really like the first one I made the most, but myself and many other people added some really cool ideas and designs for alternate door animations that I can hopefully implement in some way eventually. I then made some more necessary animations, and after I imported these into Unity, here's what they looked like. Pretty happy with the result, and I think they look pretty neat now how they come up from the ground. Another thing I need to work on was game structure. Right now I use findObject of type a lot, which probably isn't too good. So instead I started working on a simple game manager that could store a bunch of references that I often use and just assign them of the inspector one time. Then instead of having to use findObject of type, I could just use gameController.player for example. This was a really small but nice addition to the game structure and possibly performance, so thanks a ton to Trigen and Virona Chorus for helping with the code. One thing I want to briefly mention is that while working, somehow I actually messed up something in kind of my map generator, and all of a sudden my rooms just stopped generating correctly. And this ate up hours of my time, and I felt like I didn't even change anything, and the problem just appeared from nowhere. And worst of all, I had no clue where the problem was coming from. Though eventually, after a ton of trial and error, I found out that I must have somehow actually unchecked this tiny box inside of the map generation script, which messed up everything. So this was a really annoying setback, and I don't mean this as an excuse or anything, but I just wanted to make people aware that this kind of stuff happens to game developers, or at least me every now and then. But before I continue on with the video, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, Core. Core is a new free game creation platform that allows you to build, publish, and play games. If you're just starting out with game development, Core is a great choice and allows you to quickly create your own games, and is especially useful if you want to set up a 3D multiplayer game. And the best part is, you don't even need to know how to code, so you can get started making games instantly with their thousands of free, high-quality music, sound, and art assets, with no coding required. But if you'd like to go deeper, feel free to create your own game logic in Lua. You can build games completely from scratch or remix and reimagine content from other Core users. And when you're ready to publish, your game will go live on the Core platform, all with the click of a button. Core also handles all the hassle involved with multiplayer networking for you, and they're currently hosting an Arenas of Combat level design jam in collaboration with extra credits and the original Counter-Strike creator with a prize pool of $5,000. So feel free to check out Core. It's completely free, so you can head over to coregames.com or visit them by clicking my link in the description. But after I figured that out, I have to admit I was pretty lost, and I didn't know what to work on, and I didn't exactly know what my plan for the game was. So instead of hacking away randomly at stuff, I decided to work on a game plan / design document so I could start thinking about long-term game related things and flesh out more ideas that I had in mind. So with this said, I created a new Google Doc, and with the help of a Gamasutra article, I spent the next few days just drafting out ideas for how things like procedural generation, game flow, and level design would end up working. I also tried to think a little more about the story, boss fights, and other essential mechanics. So here's a rundown of a few things I wrote. In regards to the story, here was my idea. Pretty much, you play as some guy who lives in a house. Then, somehow, a Slime King curses the area that the player lives in, causing corruption around the player's house. The corruption starts affecting the player's house and life, so he gets fed up and finally goes on a quest to stop it. And the player's goal is to kill the Slime King, who lives inside of the keep, which is the last level. I've been thinking of something similar to this idea since the start of development, and I think it will fit the game pretty well. Next up was gameplay, and I had a pretty interesting idea. This was that instead of having floors or levels, the game will instead use days, and each new day brings new enemies and effects to show that the corruption is getting worse. And the core gameplay revolved on decision making with the slime pet mechanic of to capture or not, and the decision of to keep the slimes alive longer for more money while also taking the risk of them getting stronger. Now for procedural generation. I've already created the base for procedural generation, however I am aware that what I'm doing is really similar to the way that Enter the Gungeon goes about procedural generation and combat, and I really don't want my game to feel like a Gungeon clone with some added mechanics. I think I just opted to make this kind of generation because I've been playing a lot of Enter the Gungeon. When I thought about what kind of procedural generation to use, my mind just kind of instantly wandered there. I think the word for it may be subconscious plagiarism, though I wouldn't really say I'm plagiarizing work. So the point I'm trying to make is that I'm going to try to make the gameplay loop / progression / level layout different from Gungeon. An idea I had was to give the game infinite days or a very large amount of days. Then the player can choose whenever he would like to fight the Slime King inside of the keep. However, he needs to know when he's ready, because if the player is unprepared, he will get crushed by the king. It can also be risky to start a new day, because the corruption will get worse, but it can also be very beneficial or essential to prepare for the Slime King. And the player could choose when he wants to end their day by going back inside their house and sleeping. Personally, I thought this idea was pretty neat on paper. I'm sure it wouldn't be the easiest thing to implement, and it may end up being not a good idea while playing, but I might as well put it out there. Another important thing is how to handle boss fights. Many roguelikes or roguelites force you to fight a boss before progressing. However, something I think that can make my game really stand out is allowing the player to not be forced to fight any bosses, of course with the exception of the Slime King. However, it is heavily incentivized as bosses drop very good loot that might be necessary to defeat the Slime King. And I think this could be interesting because it is yet again more decision making of the player and can reward players for the knowledge of the game and mastery of mechanics. Also, Byronosaurus had a similar idea that I'll put on screen now, so please let me know what you guys think of his idea or mine, as that'd really help me out and I'd love to see what you guys think. With all this said, I really don't want to get too ahead of myself. Who knows, I could end up never finishing the game, or it could just end up being really unfun. And a lot of these ideas I just mentioned are definitely not final and completely subject to change. I recently watched a really good video by PatchQuest talking about the rocky development in his game, and I really hope my game doesn't go down the same route with a bunch of mechanics that don't work well together. But I'll definitely try to learn from his mistakes and not have my game end up in shambles. But that's enough talking for now. If you want to read more, I'll make sure to link a PDF to the document I wrote in the description if you're interested. Now let's get back to working on Slimekeep. The first thing I started working on was the currency system. I previously had a really basic currency drop system set up, but it kind of stopped working and it was really clunky anyways. So I drew up a new sprite and decided to call the currency slime balls, as I just think that makes the most sense. I also had to spend some time setting up the currency system alongside the new room system. It was a little strange because the scripts of the procedural generation wouldn't allow me to do things like find object of type, or get access to my game controller script. I'm pretty sure this is because of namespaces, however, I may be wrong. So I ended up having to use an if statement in an update, which obviously isn't good practice, but I tried for quite a few hours to work around this, but I couldn't find a way. So if anyone has a clue what I'm talking about, please let me know in the comments below. But at the end, it still works, and inside of the inspector, I can choose how many slime balls a slime can drop. I may make this a random between two numbers, but I'll have to see. Then, when a slime dies, it'll spawn those slime balls at a random offset. And when the player kills all the enemies in a room, the slime balls will move towards the player. Right now it's super unpolished, but I have some ideas in the mind to make this look much better. Next up, I had to make some changes to the capture gun as it's still quite buggy. So I just tweaked a few things and now it's a little more functional, though it probably still needs some work. Then another small thing was fixing some of the mini issues with the slime pet. There's so many issues, I won't even get into all of them, but for example, the teleporting didn't work, so I had to rework that and I made this function that sort of works. And I also made the slime teleport whenever he touches a door, so it won't get stuck outside a room. There were also really small changes that I had to make, like how the slime would sometimes get stuck in his attack animation, and stuff like that. So I tried to patch up some of those issues, and at the end, the slime pet was looking much better, though I still feel like he feels a bit clunky, so I'll just have to look at that more when I start testing gameplay. After I was done with that, I was still a little lost on what to work on. I wasn't sure if I should start on the progression system or just hold back and wait for feedback. So I started to think of things that my game still needs, and I thought of bosses. So that's what I started working on. My original plan was just to have one main boss script and use inherited classes with override functions to create unique bosses. However, out of curiosity, I decided to look up on YouTube how other creators were going about creating boss fights. And I found out that Brackeys and Blackthorn Prod had tutorials on how to create boss fights with state machines. I'd never really used state machines before, but I figured I'd give them a try as apparently they're really nice for organization. So I gave them a go by following the Blackthorn Prod tutorial, and eventually I had a really basic boss setup who couldn't move but could take damage. Also, just keep in mind that all the art you see here is all placeholder, and it won't actually be an actual boss. Then I started making some boss animations, and now my boss could kind of follow the player, but still only on the x-axis, and it could also randomly play an idle or attack animation. But there is still a lot of work to do, so by the end, I had this neat animator tree with state machine scripts on the animations, and now my boss could attack the player, and things are going pretty well. However, I quickly realized that I was moving my boss with vector3.move towards instead of using pathfinding, and I was sure I was going to need to use pathfinding for my bosses. So I thought it wouldn't be too difficult to switch, however it turned into a nightmare, and things just stopped working. Pretty much, I could either get the animations working or the movement working at once, not both at the same time. And this was just a really confusing Unity thing that took a whole entire day of my time to figure out. I think the problem laid within how using child game objects with state machines seemed to mess things up, but after messing around, I finally got it working, and our test boss finally has pathfinding. And this is a really nice foundation. However, by now I was really tired of working on the game, so I just stopped work there. And that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys liked it. I know I spent a lot more time editing this video, so if you like the editing, just let me know. If you don't like it, also let me know. I think things might have been a little fast, I'm not sure, but I'd love to hear your feedback. I also scripted everything, so I don't know if that makes a difference. I think it did. I don't know if it's positive or negative. Again, just let me know. And so yeah, if you liked the video, make sure to leave a like or subscribe. That'd be very appreciated. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.